John Stafford, Circle S Farm Supply, Rutherford, Tennessee. I'm here with my dad, Harold Stafford. He's the owner of the company here. Been a lot of questions recently about how to put a profit in growing corn this year. Things are less than exciting in the grain market, and for years we've offered liquid plant food programs that have helped people accomplish not only their goals in growing corn, but growing corn and putting a profit in it. So let's dig into that just a little bit today, and we'll talk about that. Dad, first of all, briefly talk about the type of products that we sell, the quality, and why we sell the ortho products for the most part.
The markets that we go into, whether it be row crop, vegetables, tobacco, whatever, many of those applications, such as drip irrigation on vegetables, as a transplant solution on vegetables, tobacco, the product quality has to be as good as we can buy. And that's what we look at. We look at salt index, pH, heavy metal content, orthophosphate products, and then when you get into orthophosphates, you've got different grades of acid. You've got food grade, technical grade, you've got spin acid out there. So not all ortho products are the same either. pH is very important. The manufacturers that we deal with that make our product set the pH of the product at about 7.5 to 8. Some manufacturers just build the product and let the pH fall where it will. Those are factors that are very important. Back when hemp was popular for human consumption there for a while, for 2 or 3 years, we had people drive here from out of state because that product grown for human production was going to be tested for heavy metals. And we had a product that we would guarantee that was low in heavy metals. There might be a trace in there, but it'd be a very small trace, if any. And so those products were going to be tested for heavy metals. And we sold product down into different states to go on hemp that was going to be used for medicinal purposes. But the product is very important. Ortho, 100% ortho. Ortho and poly have been debated ever since I can remember, ever since I've been in the fertilizer business. Poly materials are the green acids, black acids, and even in poly you have different grades. The high grade or better grade of green acid is in the poly, the lower grade is the black acids. How quick the plant only receives and recognizes orthophosphate. It has to be in the P3H2 dihydrogen phosphate form. P2O5 is just a convenient form of measurement. That's all it is. The plant doesn't know anything about P2O5. And whether you're using DAP or whatever, it all has to get to the orthophosphate form for the plant to take it in. So we're very curious about the quality of our product. There are other companies besides the ones that we do business with that probably make good quality product. We hear claims made by different companies, or they'll say their product is not safe on the seed, a certain amount of gallons, and it may not be. We only make recommendations on our own product. But if you're going to use a higher rate in fur, such as we do in some cases, it's sure enough got to be 100% ortho, really good quality product.
And many of our products are food grade.
They are.
We've toured a plant some years ago. Some of you have heard us talk about this, where we visited the plant. They were making plant food over here, and they said, well, do you want to see the food grade side of the plant? So, yeah, we would like to see that and tour that. So you put a hairnet and walk through a curtain on the other side of the facility, and now you're in the food grade side of the material, the side of the manufacturing facility. So, many of our products are actually food grade. They won't certify organic, but they are food grade material. And as Dad said, we've got to have that to be seed safe.
And there's nothing in our product that is antagonistic to the biology of the soil. We're actually very soil friendly, very low salt index. So, we're friendly to the biological portion of the soil. We don't kill microbes in the soil with our product. We actually help promote better root growth and development and possibly better biological life in the soil.
So, Dad, you started this in the 70s, and when you were starting your career in the liquid fertilizer business, everyone was using fertilizer off the planter. So,
correct.
Talk about that a little bit and how that all got started, how you started that portion.
We hear things, I do all the time, and 53 years of doing this and specializing in liquid fertilizer. That's been my deal for 53 years. And it sounds like people try to reinvent something. Some people maybe haven't been farming a long time. They think this is something new, but it's not. But back in the 70s, everybody was using a 4-row planter. I was there when the 6 rows came out, and I remember converting some planters. But everybody was using a 4-row planter, and most everybody, I'd say 99% of the growers, were still putting fertilizer right down off the planter, 2 inches beside, 2 inches below. And a lot of people even had dry fertilizer tenders back then to help handle bulk fertilizer where they didn't have to have bag fertilizer. Made it a little more convenient. So when we started selling liquid, the company that I worked for in the 70s, we pioneered the liquid business. And they didn't sell dry fertilizer, they sold liquid. So when we went out and sold a customer, we converted him to a liquid customer. We didn't talk about pop-up, we didn't talk about starter, we talked about complete programs. And we were selling like maybe a corn grower. The way we would equip the planter, we'd take the dry boxes off, we'd put the liquid tanks on where the dry boxes were, we'd put a tube on the row and a tube in the double disc opener, run lines, and we would, if he was doing a 10-gallon program, we put 4 on the seed, 6 beside the row. If he's doing a 12-gallon program, 4 on the seed, 8 beside the row. And that was the program that we sold back then. Also, even back in the 70s, we were the first company that I knew of. We had the liquid chelates even in the 70s. And I remember when I started working for them, I didn't know what a chelate was. Most of our farmers didn't know what a chelate was. But, you know, nobody was using broadcast fertilizer. Everybody knew that basically, you know, row fertilizer beside the row in the row was more efficient and better than a broadcast application. Now, and we were planting on 36, 38-inch rows. And then 30-inch rows came along. John Deere came out with the 7000 Max Emerge planter. Prior to that time, all the planters had an old long sword, sharp in the front, widened out at the back, and the seed dropped in right between the back of the sword. John Deere's most popular planter back then was a 494, 493. There may be a few of you old guys like me out there that still remember that planter. International had, I think, a number 55 and number 56. And of course, International came out with their cyclo planter, with their air planter with a big drum on it long about that time. But then we started converting to 6-row planters. And that worked well for 4 or 5 years. Then we started converting to 8-row planters. And Gibson County at that time was still a very prominent cotton growing area. And when we started leaving the trailer type planters going to the mounted planters, it made it very difficult to put deep placement on there. There was a couple companies out in the Midwest came up with a shoe device that was a drag that went out on those 7,000 planters. It wasn't successful in this part of the country. We had to have something cutting and rolling. A dragging knife just wasn't feasible in our soil types where it did work out there in those soil types. So we started leaving the planter being all put down off the planter in those 100% liquid programs and going to the starter program and spreading some dry fertilizer with it. And that's when really the broadcast fertilizer came in. And a lot of those old guys hung on to that in-row fertilizer, that deep place fertilizer. They wouldn't go to broadcast. It took several years for that conversion to take place, and then they were able to impregnate some chemicals on the dry fertilizer. Different things like that happened that helped promote the broadcast way. It was definitely a convenient way, a quick way. Our farmers got bigger, the planters got more complicated for deep placement, and that's basically what brought the starter and pop-up effect into being a common practice. We still have some growers, a few left, that are 50-year customers that have followed that old program that we started them with all those years, John. And then, some customers, 30-year customers, you talked to one the other day, made a video with, and he also did that program. So it's I hear other companies talk about doing it all off the planter. That's not new. It's just maybe been reinvented and brought back, and it is a more efficient and better way to apply the fertilizer, get it evenly distributed, and it works really well.
And when we talk about seed placed, in row, in furrow, we're talking about plant food being placed in the same trench as the seed.
Yes, absolutely.
And you talked about years past, it got complicated to put 2x2, but technology has come so far now.
Right.
Many companies, for years, we saw customers use the Keaton seed farmer with the fertilized tube. Totally tubular now is on the scene,
Yeah,
has
you
been for
got
several
people like
years.
Precision Planting, other companies that specialize in liquid fertilizer equipment. Schaefer is
Schaefer, Fertilizer, there's a ton
Wave.
of them. The Wave, Yield 360 if you want a 2x2 option. And when we say 2x2, a lot of terminology and a lot of methods. We talk about moving off the seed 2 inches and either placing it 2 inches deep or 2 inches below the seed. We always like to see it 2 inches below the seed.
What a lot of people don't realize, and this point needs to be made, if you're putting nitrogen down, and I talk to people that put nitrogen down off the planter, and that's a very efficient way to do it. But when you talk about 2x2, 2x2 always meant 2 inches to the side of the row and 2 inches below the seed, not 2 inches beside only. If you're putting down a product like nitrogen, it's very, very salty. All right, what does salt do? What does fertilizer do? What does salt do? It moves down and out, never up. It's not going to come up to the surface. So when you're putting nitrogen into that 2-inch band, if you're putting it the same depth as the seed, your opportunity for root burning is much higher than if you get it down 2 inches below the seed. Then when it moves out and down, those young roots that come out on that corn plant are not going to get burned off. And we've dug up corn plants where those roots have been burned on that side.
Right.
And it causes an opportunity for lodging and corn to blow over, that type of thing.
And on the plant food 2x2, if you're putting 2 inches below or 2 inches to the side and 2 inches deep, with our products, there is an acceptable safety measure.
There is.
We would prefer it to be 2 inches below the seed. However, with some placement methods, you can't get that. Back to the quality of our product allows you to only put 2 inches deep or 1 inch deep in certain situations,
right.
And still be safe. Of course, we're talking about putting plant food right in the same seed trench, so we offer seed safe options. And we'll dig into that just a little bit more, but that's a little bit of terminology and the history behind where we've been. So we'll dig into things a little bit deeper here on some actual numbers and programs, what we've helped people accomplish, and we'll dig into that just a little bit.